Hello, Namaste. Thank you for tuning into Quantum Investing channel. This is your host, Sarath Chalamcharla. Today, we're going to talk to a guest. Before I introduce him, I would ask you to smash that like button, share my video, and also subscribe to my channel. This is really important for the YouTube algorithm to bring my videos out. So the guest we're going to talk to they have started not more than 4 or 5 years ago, but they are on their way signing 16th mobile home park. They did not have any cash. Both came from different backgrounds and they have a common entrepreneurial spirit in real estate industry. They chose mobile home parks. This is another great example that you do not need any of your money here. They have done most of their deals on other people's money. They are Ryan Nares and Ian Tudor. Ryan has shared lot of great information. Unfortunately, Ian is not able to join us today. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ryan Nares. Hello, Ryan. How are you doing? Let's start with, can you introduce yourself about where you have started, what's your background, and what do you guys do?
Sure. So my name is Ryan Nares. I am a co-owner of Archimedes Group. So myself and Ian Tudor, we own and operate mobile home parks. So we have just bought our 16th mobile home park in about 5.5 years. But here's the thing, we started with nothing. We had no money, no experience, and no network. We were like 20 somethings who I guess had a little bit too much confidence and, I'll say this, and no excuses. So I really say that because, I think you can always find someone who has an advantage you don't, or someone, on the opposite end of that where you have an advantage they don't. And I like to say that because the truth of the matter is I have met hundreds of really great people who have not got started in real estate because they find excuses before they find ways to get it done. And I really want people to excuse bust. But just so you know, I went to Wake Forest University. I was a psychology undergrad. I had the convenience of graduating in 2009, meaning the job market was terrible. So I went and sold cars and actually stuck with that for 4 years. And then I went back to get my MBA. Meanwhile, Ian, he went to Virginia Tech and studied finance and then worked for a multi-billion-dollar REIT. So we both brought interesting skills to the table, but none of it was actually applicable directly to mobile home parks. So we had to learn it all from scratch. So again, Sarath, I want to come back to this point. You got to learn how to excuse bust. There's always going to be someone who has something that you don't. There's always one more thing you can have before you get started, which would be nice to have, but there's also the opposite end of that spectrum. People who don't have everything you do, and they find a way to do it too.
That's so great. And the right thing is the age, I guess. Like you guys are so young. And I always ask this question, talking to many people, what would you have done in your 20s? Like, I don't have to ask you guys. This is the right thing to do. That's so nice. And you said you started with zero. Is it seller financing? How it worked?
So before we go on to that, I want to say, I found this when I was 28 and Ian was 25. But the truth of the matter is, it didn't matter if we were 55 or 15 or any age. The truth of the matter is, you're always building skills, always. And you're always meeting people and you're always trying to answer the question of what do I want to be when I grow up? And as long as you keep trying to answer that question, whether it's mobile home parks, self-storage, whatever, once you definitively have the answer to that question, then it's no longer about what you have, what you don't have, what you need to wait for. It just isn't. You'll find a way to do it. So now to answer your question, was it seller carry? In 16 deals, this deal that we're closing on right now is the second seller carry I've ever gotten. And it doesn't really count because the seller carry is a second. So in actually getting a bank loan and then part of the equity was actually just quite literally a seller carry loan. So in other words, it wasn't seller carry.
How did you find the money and all that to start with, the very first one?
It is this beautiful thing called other people's money, OPM. And let me explain. There are really 3 legs to any deal. I want to credit my friend Andrew Keel for telling me this. There are 3 crucial portions to any real estate deal. It's like a three-legged stool. If any stool is missing, the stool falls apart. And those three legs are, number one, first and foremost, you have to have someone whose name is on a deed who is willing and able to sell that, to sign off on that deed into you and or your company or your group's name. You need to have a willing seller. Someone needs to sign up to the table, show up to the table and sign. Number two, that person is going to want a big fat check for that signature. So you need to have money that can either be debt through a bank or through hard money lending or a personal family loan, or that can be equity. So you can bring on investor partners. And then number three, someone's actually got to run the property. Okay. So even in a triple net lease, there's going to be things you're going to have to do. So yeah, it's a coupon clipper. You get checks in your mailbox. Great. You actually have to walk out to your mailbox, get the check and cash the check, right? At the end of the year, even if it's direct deposit, you've got a K1 you got to worry about. There's always going to be some level of work. And for that, each of those three legs require someone to do something. And the harder it is and the less people that there are who are able to do one of those three things, the more value those things create. So when Ian and I started out, we didn't have any money. But guess what? We did have salesmanship. So we were able to find willing sellers. And guess what? We also were willing to literally move to a mobile home park, live in it, and be our own operations team. And so because of that, those are two out of the three legs that we were quite literally able to bring that value to the table. And you can exchange sweat equity and things like that, acquisition fees, for cash. So what we did on our first deal was we got compensated by an acquisition fee, which we kept partially in the deal. And we used the other bit of it to actually go and buy our second mobile home park, also with an outside investor, with an investor partner. Reason being is we still didn't have enough money. And now that we have enough money to do stuff on our own, I still don't want to. When you do the math on OPM, it multiplies your returns. So it almost never makes sense to not use other people's money.
God, is it the syndication they say? Is it the same thing or is it a different thing?
So we do joint venture partnerships. So I bring people to the table who are going to be active with me, alongside me, to much lesser degrees, right? So in other words, I'm going to be at the properties. I'm going to be doing the accounting. I'm going to be handling all sorts of headaches. The people I'm partnering with are bringing expertise, bringing relationships, bringing other things to the table, but I'm doing most of the heavy lifting. So it is a little different than a syndication in that regard. I don't have a true limited partner. I don't have a 503B. I don't have to jump through all those hoops because people aren't writing me money to be put in a pool and with other investors, and then they just get distribution checks when they get them. I have investor partners, JV partners who come on, they sign full recourse debt along with me. So they post basically their own collateral as well. So that's how I've opted to do it. And the big reason why I've done that is because of what type of properties I chase after. I look for more heavy value add stuff. I look for stuff that private equity shops usually won't compete with me over. So I have a chance to actually buy them without paying $1 bajillion for. That's the strategy I've chosen, but I know a ton of wonderful syndicators in the space. Definitely an option as well.
Why mobile home park industry? Why not anything else in real estate?
For me, it was that my skill set that I had developed over the years and my passions all fit mobile home parks. First off, I sold cars for years. Mobile homes operate very similarly with the title process and the tax process, and in a lot of ways, the sales and licensing process. So there were a lot of similarities there. Because I learned how to sell and conflict resolve, because that is car sales. When people go to buy a car, they're usually expecting a fight. And because of that, I had to learn how to basically be a customer service person. So I learned how to deliver a good experience. So in other words, had a lot of similarities and synergies to a property management type role. So my skill set that I have been developing over the years actually fit it quite well. And Ian, even though he was doing Class A office underwriting, as an analyst, he brought certain skills to the table from that realm. So our skill sets really matched each other quite well and fit this
Balance,
industry
right?
like a glove.
Mhm.
And not only that, for almost my entire life, I've always been very passionate about helping underprivileged kids get educations. Big way kids get educated is by having a good, stable household. So it warms my heart knowing when I'm hard on tenants to get bad tenants out, keep good tenants in, I know I'm creating a stable environment for these kids, at least within the neighborhood, so they can go and get their education. And not only that, we also started a partial college scholarship so our residents' kids can go to school after they graduate high school. And we're looking to build out other charity as well so kids can focus on their education. So it's twofold. Number one, it matches my skill set. It matches my passion. Number two as well, not just for charitable causes, but also because I'm a firm believer in preserving and really enhancing affordable housing.
That's so nice. As you grow, you're giving back to the community too. That's really wonderful.
It's a big part of what I do.
That's great. And so not so long ago, you guys have started, right? What, 2017 into mobile home parks or much before that?
We started in July of 2015 and we went full time in June of 2017.
That's nice.
Really, but it was really like June 30th. So it was really July. It was really about 2 full years before we went full time.
Wow. Within 3 years or so, you are on the 16th one. That's so nice. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Uh,
Yeah, it took a little over 5 years to get from 0 to 16. But I'll put it to you this way: it snowballs. It goes really slow up front, and then all of a sudden you have all these deals under contract, and you're saying no to deals because you're like, I don't have time for this, I don't have money for this. It is a far cry difference than when you started. It is not linear. It is definitely exponential.
Super. What's changed, you think, from 2015, 2017, late 2020, right? What are the changes you see in the mobile home park industry?
Surprisingly, not much. A lot of people are like, wow, you're lucky to get started back then. And truth be told, yeah, there were less players in the space. Maybe lending was a little bit more difficult, but really not that much. It's not dramatically different. I think a lot of people have raised a lot of money on a supposition that 10 caps and seller carry and mom and pops were everywhere. And now that then they went out and raised money before understanding the marketplace. And what's ended up happening is a lot of these people have gone, oh no, I can't get 10 caps. And then what they do is they go, I guess I could settle for an 8. Well, really, I could settle for a 6 and have leverage on it. And that's how I pay my 8 pref back. And this really process has happened over and over and over again with people who have raised tens of millions of dollars. And what that's done to the space is really, it's compressed cap rates in a big, big way. And pricing has definitely gone up, as have rents, because I think a lot of people are overpaying for assets based on what they should be worth today, just as is. So in other words, they're paying for a future value and then they're making tenants pay for it by cranking rents way up. So that is definitely happening on a larger scale. But in terms of like operationally, what's going on with mobile home parks, it's pretty much the same business. In terms of, are there new ones being developed? Very, very minimal ones are being redeveloped. In terms of lending's got a little bit better. But I think the truth of the matter is, in terms of how different was it 5.5 years ago when I got started, there are probably a little less people in the space. Prices were a little bit better, lending a little bit harder to get, but by and large, it's pretty much the same game.
In mobile home park industry, there are big fish, like they have their own lots and lots of pads, and they are average and the beginners too. How does it equate things? Is it really difficult to get into mobile home park industry? You need to find a right buy.
That's a great question. I really think it starts here, though. It starts with, what do you want out of the space? Because if you want 5,000 lots versus if you just want some extra income on the side, your strategy is going to be totally different, and you're going to find different challenges, and you're going to have to make different concessions. Me personally, I'm just happy to be at home where I am right now with my family. I can sleep in if I want to. I can work 80 hours a week or work 8 hours a week. I don't care. That makes me happy. Helping others makes me happy. And because of that, now I can just find a niche play within a niche play. And because of that, I can do things like buy a property with 2 residents, which I did, by the way. I bought a property with 2 residents. There was it was losing tens of thousands of dollars a year. Hopefully, knock on wood, within 12 months, that'll be a profitable property. And inventory that was sitting there, affordable housing inventory that was sitting there unused, will now be used. So I'm going to take a lot of pride in that, and basically preserving a plot of land and enhancing it and bringing in much needed affordable housing units. So to me, that's my strategy. So I don't mind if I close 1 deal a year or 15. Like I really don't. I'm indifferent to that. But if you go, I want 5,000 lots in 2 years, buddy, you better go raise tens and tens of millions of dollars, and you better be buying everywhere and all sorts of stuff. And also pay your operations crew really, really well, because these do not run as smoothly as they would lead on. So starting out, the number one thing you got to do is you got to say, what do I want out of this space? Number 2, you got to say, great, now that I know what I want, now I'm going to craft a strategy. Then number 3, go after it. I was talking to someone yesterday or the day before that, and he said, would you buy a property that was losing money or, barely make any money year 1 for it to be profitable in a big way in year 2 or 3? And I said, it's like the Stanford marshmallow experiment, where they're like, okay, toddler, you can have a marshmallow now, or you can wait and have 2 marshmallows later. I will tell you all day long, you wait for the second marshmallow.
Delayed gratification, I guess. Yeah, sure. That was my exact question, I guess, next. So there's a low cap rate and all that. And do you buy that kind, or 100% occupied? You just want the maintenance and operational done. How is your strategy actually? What kind of how are you guys purchasing it?
I will buy a lot of different stuff. I've bought stuff with, like I said, quite literally 2 residents. So it's at, less than 10% occupancy. I've bought stuff that's nice and stable. I've paid market and above market prices for stuff. I've paid pennies on the dollar for things that are atrocious. And I've done about everything in the middle. The biggest one we've ever been a part of was 527 lots. The smallest we ever did was 25 lots. I've offered on less than that. I've offered on 17 lots. What I am looking for is the opportunity to buy something where I can make it better in a way that everyone wins. And it can be really difficult to quantify exactly what I'm looking for. But the truth of the matter is, when I know I can go in and make a big difference, I'm excited.
And what kind of due diligence you guys do? Let's say start with the location and going through the numbers, cap rate and all that. What kind of steps you usually take?
So when we're looking at an opportunity, we can usually decide whether or not we're going to do it within a couple minutes. And the reason why is because, for the most part, we are never going to buy anything outside of a major MSA. I'm not interested unless there's about 400,000 people within reasonable driving distance. Otherwise, I'm just straight not interested. Unless it's just such a no-brainer. Those unicorns never exist, though. So to me, first and foremost, I'm looking for just a colossal MSA, not something with 100,000 people in it. No, I'm talking Charlotte, Atlanta, Asheville, Knoxville, Charleston, Columbia. Like, I want big stuff in the Southeast. And from there, what I do is I'm pretty indifferent as to whether it's well or septic or city water, city sewer, pretty indifferent on paved roads. My big thing, again, comes down to this. Can I improve this property in a significant way? And if the answer to that is yes, then I'm in. That being said, I have bought stable properties before so I can achieve an economy of scale. So there's a bunch of strategy that gets into play into at least my acquisitions strategy, which makes it a little bit more complicated. But in terms of due diligence is really fun to me because you get to play detective for your own money. So we've done all sorts of crazy stuff. We always make it a point to meet the city manager. Even through COVID, you show up with masks, you socially distance. I make it a point to meet the city manager. Sometimes we've spoken to stuff like the city attorney, the county attorney, try to meet with the Department of Health, try to meet with any plumbers, electricians in the area, contractors, checking out park-owned homes, checking out viability of pads, meeting people in the zoning and planning department. I mean, we try to uncover about every stone we can so we can understand the process from start to finish. Because even if it's 100% occupied, 100% tenant-owned home, and in theory a coupon clipper, truth is, at some point, someone's going to default. You're going to need to either buy their home, or someone's going to burn their home down. You're going to need to bring in a new home. You need to understand the permit process and how much a city or municipality or county is going to want to work with you or not work with you. And those things you really need to understand so you can understand the risk. And then from there, you can see if the risk matches the reward.
If it is burned down, you need to replace with a new home, right? New house. Do you guys go with the new ones, or usually how does it work? There's a mobile home, right? Like, you can put a used one too, I believe, right? So what kind of...
We primarily go used. So the reason why is, again, our philosophy is we want to preserve and enhance affordable housing. So to me, a new unit is really a new home is creating a new unit, whereas taking a home that is in good shape, it just needs, it's got good bones, it just needs to be worked on. To me, that's a lot more exciting. Even though price-wise, they come out pretty similarly within maybe $10,000. To me, I would rather do that. It also depends on the size of the lots. It also depends on the surrounding communities. A lot of times, community is just not going to support a brand new home. It's just not going to happen. So I've brought in about 12 new homes lifetime. We are set to get our Tennessee dealer's license so we can buy about 10 to 20 new homes for a community we're closing on today. So we definitely do buy new. However, our strong preference is used. But again, all depends on the strategy of that particular asset and the quality of the surrounding homes in the surrounding area. And just because it's used doesn't mean it's not really nice. You can get some really nice used homes as well.
Are there any mobile home friendly states? You mentioned a lot of places, right? Nashville and all that, Southeast. Is there a state-wise or county-wise you guys look for? Are there any friendly to mobile home parks?
Yes and no. So it's just kind of like varying degrees of how much they hate it.
Okay.
And I hate to say this, but it's also very contingent upon the people who are staffed at the county and or municipality. So a lot of times, I'll give you a good, for example, here in the Charlotte area, we have one where the city is just in love with how much we've changed that property. They have. I mean, we've spoken to the firefighters, police officers. They're like, we don't come here anymore. We used to be here all the time. And we just were like, well, is that trailer park down the road? Now they're like, it's literally got to the point where now firefighters are asking us if we have any availability. Totally different. That makes me excited. So they're relatively easy to work with. But the flip of that is a county that just doesn't care. They have employees that don't care. They have people who just have it in their mind that they're going to make it hard. It's really hard to really say, well, this area is a good area or that area is a bad area. You could have a good area state-wise and a bad area county-wise. You could have a great person that you can speak with at a county that quits or leaves, and then you're stuck with someone who hates their job. Someone said this recently, and I loved it. They were like, the United States of America really has 4 branches of government: House of Representatives, Senate, executive branch, and the bureaucrat. And basically what that like kind of funny thing is meant to say is that one other person within our government that has a lot of power is that knucklehead down at the county who is either going to sign off yes or sign off no on your permit to get whatever you need to get done. And that person may not necessarily follow the rules. They are definitely subject to corruption. We have met with corruption before. It exists. It is scary, but it exists. And it's just another phase of government you have to deal with.
That's some interesting things to know. Sure. I hear mobile home parks are limited.
Yes.
Why is that? There's a lot of land. Is it the restriction? They don't want to grow more mobile home parks? What's happening?
It's a few things. First and foremost, it costs about, depending on where you're getting the labor and how you're doing the labor, plus or minus $55,000 a site to build out the land, bring the infrastructure, do all the grading, paving, mailboxes, the works per lot, and then you have to buy a new home to bring it in, which will cost at least say $30,000, $40,000, really probably $40,000 plus. So I mean, your all in is going to be closer to $100,000 to build one. Then you have to find people to move in and buy these homes, and yeah, sure, you can offset some of those costs. There's a bunch of different ways you can make a profit there, and I have heard of people who have done this and profitably, but it's just really, really hard. So for example, in a few days, actually on Sunday, my podcast is coming out with a developer who just recently got the thumbs up to develop a mobile home park. He's one of a handful of people who are doing it. And the steps he had to go through to develop one were insane. It's not just that it's cost prohibitive. It's just cheaper to buy something that already exists, but also the amount of crap you have to deal with the bureaucrats to get permits, to get things passed. It's just a headache and a half. And it takes a lot of politicking, may take lawsuits. Someone said this and I thought it was hilarious. They're like, I don't know if a developer who's told you they've never been sued or had to sue someone isn't actually a developer. It's just the amount of headache you have to deal with to develop really anything. It's just really prohibitive relative to being able to buy something and even pay up for something relative to what the market pricing is, rather than have to build out something new. So it's a little bit of everything, but the truth of the matter is it's really hard. There's a lot of risk and just not that much reward yet for it to happen in scale.
So who live in the mobile home parks? Is it specific people? When I say people, is retired people, or what kind do you see usually?
You see people that you would never know are there. Firefighters, nurses, teachers, people with giant families, people who are going through divorces, people with graduate degrees who just fell in hard times, elderly folks who just, they want a cheap place to live. There are people from outside the space. This is shocking too. These folks are people. They are people just like you and I. They are choosing to live somewhere for X, Y, or Z reason, but for the most part, they're just normal people like you and I. Yes, there is an elevated amount of ridiculousness that happens relative to other asset classes, but the truth of the matter is these are hardworking people that care about their families. They want to be treated with respect, and they want to treat their landlord with respect too. So these are not bizarre people from a different planet. They're just like you and I.
No, I agree. So there are RVs to RV parks, or is it mix of both, or what kind of difference between the manufactured homes having in the parks and mix of RVs, or could you please shed some light there?
Yeah, well, there's one big difference. A mobile home costs several $1,000s to move it. Then you have to reblock it. Then you have to build a new deck, hook into water, sewer, electrical, get permits. It's just not easy to move a mobile home, and it's really expensive. It's really cost prohibitive. Whereas an RV, you turn it on and you drive away. So it's a bit of a different business model. It's more of a hospitality model. Although there are long-term RVs, there are RVs that basically you rip the engine out and it's done. It's like a camper, basically, that's not going anywhere. So there are a lot of things that rhyme. There are a lot of synergies. I own one that's a mix of RV and mobile home. It happens. The truth of the matter is RVs are more hospitality. They're closer to an apartment than they are a mobile home park. Usually you have more transient people. It's just one of those things where, yeah, it has a lot of similarities, but in a lot of ways it's not. And it's a lot more hands-on too. So I like RV. I don't love it. I'm definitely a mobile home park guy, but it's certainly hard to buy mobile home parks and not eventually run into some component of RV.
Park owned to tenant owned, or who they own it, right? So what is the difference, and how, when you look for a new mobile home parks, Do you go for park owned more, or you want to have a balance there? What kind of strategies you take?
Sure. So the difference is who owns the home. So you're always going to own the dirt. The question is whose title is this mobile home in? Is it in your name, your company's name, or is it this person? Are you going to just rent the land and have them be responsible for all of the repairs? Or are you going to rent it to these folks? And the overwhelming majority of people who get into this space want tenant-owned homes, and it makes sense. It's cleaner, it's easier, there's more pride of ownership, there's less headaches. However, I actually am a bit more of a fan of the park-owned home. So I'm a bit more of a contrarian, and I'll tell you why. It comes down to one word, and that word is control. If I have the title, I am the boss. You are on my property, and if you don't follow my rules or you don't pay, you will leave.
Got it.
And when somebody owns something, they also take, they have pride of ownership, but they can also be a little bit more entitled. Hey, this is mine. You need to do that. You need to trim this tree for me. You need to do this for me. You need to do X, Y, and Z for me. So there's going to be headaches and tenant complaints either way. However, you need to be focused on the delta between what you could get for lot rent and what you could get for rent. So I'll give you a good, for example, in my property in Asheville, I can rent a double wide for over $1,000 easy. My lot rent as of this recording is $315. That's $700+ per month different. And my residents there are very sticky because Asheville, it is impossible to find a rental place for under $1,000. And not only that, you're not getting a giant double wide with a huge yard for that much money. They're really sticky residents. So they're not moving. They're not going anywhere. They follow my rules. They're good people. I've met them all. They're wonderful folks. Why would I give up $700 a month? I just had to re-roof one of my homes. I'm going to do the metal roof. I had to do everything because it's all rotted out. It's going to cost me like $6,200 to do the metal roof on a home, on a stick-built home. So not a mobile home. So let's just say that's $7,000. Let's round up big time. So this is a colossal issue. You have to do a complete re-roof. Well, if your delta is $700 and your people are really, really sticky, you're hitting that within about 10 months, paying that back. You got to redo an HVAC. That's going to be plus or minus $5,000. How often is that stuff going to happen? The biggest expense that you're going to run into with a park-owned home, really beyond the roof, the roof and the HVAC, is the turnover. So when someone moves, you're going to spend $1,000 to $3,000 making it ready for the next person. Now, if you're turning over person after person after person, it's going to add up. But if you find a really sticky resident, it's amazing. I mean, we did the math recently, and it just jumps off the page how much more lucrative a park-owned home is. If you get the right people in there and they're sticky, it is way more lucrative. So Ian and I actually run a combination, a hybrid model, some park-owned, some tenant-owned. The truth of the matter is your phone will ring off the hook if you're all park-owned home. It just will. It's more headaches. But with higher risk, higher headache comes more reward. So for us, we do a little bit of both. If you were to ask me if I had to describe an ideal mobile home park, this is going to sound crazy. An ideal mobile home park for me is 100% full of homes. I would own every one of them. So they're all mobile, they're all park-owned homes, and there's no residents. I'll tell you why. Because I can fix them up and bring in my own people that I have screened on my own for a fair market rent. One of the biggest issues that our space faces right now is market pricing is all over the board. And the truth of the matter is people would pay a whole lot more than what Billy Bob charges down the street. Billy Bob charges $200 down the street. Is that market? Well, if I'm selling a home right now at $400, that's double, and my phone's ringing off the hook, the market is telling you $200 is not a fair price at all. $400 is probably low if your phone is ringing off the hook. So in other words, for me personally, if I have a huge property that's all park-owned homes with no one in it, so I don't have to displace families to get people to come in at fair rates, oh my gosh, sign me up. And that is exactly what I was talking about earlier with the property with 2 residents. It's zoned for 30, I think it's zoned for 34 lots, but we have 33 addresses, 2 tenant-owned homes, and 29 park-owned homes that are vacant. And we've been able to, in 30 days, fill half of it at market rent, which is double what the 2 tenant-owned home people are paying right now.
You're,
And I've met one of them face to face. I'm going to go meet the other person face to face and just tell them, like, look, I know that you now have a ton of neighbors now that are over double what you are paying in some cases. Like, I want to let you know I'm not going to raise you up to their rent tomorrow, but you need to work with me because you eventually need to be there. Because the truth of the matter is, again, Billy Bob down the road at $200, that's not really market. It's what people would pay you today to live there.
yeah, you shared some great points there. Let's jump on to the financing part, get into it. Earlier, you said it's a little bit harder compared to other real estate entities, right? So why is it harder, and is it the interest rates are more than the regular multifamily or the single family homes? Can you share some?
No, it's not interest rate driven, it's collateral driven. So let me explain. In an apartment, you have better infrastructure, you have an actual edifice. A lot of times the grading is much better for something like an apartment. So mobile homes are really easy to put kind of anywhere because you're putting them up on cinder blocks. Maybe you're doing steel rebar if it's like a really aggressive grading situation. But the truth of the matter is one of my properties is like quite literally a ski slope. I mean, it is so steep. I just don't know how you could, and the parcel of land is shaped really weird. I don't know how you could realistically develop something without spending a bajillion dollars. So in other words, a lot of times what happens with a mobile home park is it's not just that there is no edifice or that infrastructure is older. It's a lot of times just in plots of land that are harder to develop because the really great pieces of land have already been bought out and redeveloped, right? So in other words, from a banker's standpoint, they would ideally like the collateral to be the land, because if you default, that means that's not a cash flowing asset anymore. And what are they really repossessing at that point? Well, the land for the most part, and the land is going to be worth dramatically less than what and even an 8 cap for a bigger property would be. It just is. So because of that, it's prohibitive from a bank from a downside risk perspective. So when you look at interest rates relative to like apartments, mobile home parks actually trade at a very similar basis to apartments. Why is that? Because for the most part, the bigger mobile home parks, it would just take so much to really screw it up that a bank doesn't really look at that as that risky. It's the smaller ones that really take a lot of convincing to get banks on top of. And even then, they want you to post full recourse debt, which I have on basically every single one of my properties is full recourse debt. And again, it all comes down to this. What is the risk profile from the bank? What is their collateral? It's not very good. Even if it's all park on home, guess what? Mobile homes are depreciating assets. They don't want to own that. So that is, it's just been the most difficult things for banks to wrap their heads around, even though through coronavirus, the only thing that has collected better than mobile home parks have been warehouses. So smashing hotels, smashing office, smashing even malls. It's just they've been collecting extraordinarily well. So banks are starting to warm up to the idea, but it still comes down to this. Collateral is just weak because there's no building and it's hard to redevelop. It's just something they're not used to.
So speaking about COVID, did it affect your current mobile home parks? How are the tenants doing?
I had several tenants get COVID. I had to quarantine at least one and possibly others, and they just didn't tell me. But we had actually no. Now that I think about it, more than one. We had crisis management, non-for-profits reach out and pay rents for a few folks, but by and large, our collections actually went up. So believe it or not, COVID actually made it so collections improved. So look, you're always going to have a contingent of people who just don't pay on time. If it's not COVID this month, it's fire ants next month. It's fill in the blank excuse next month. It's always going to be something. You're always going to have folks who just are slow to pay if they ever pay, and you just got to get them out. The thing that's made COVID extra challenging is the government slapping eviction moratoriums. That's made things really difficult because I get it from a political standpoint, right? You can't have 200,000 people displaced. That's going to create so many other issues. However, at the same time, rather than putting a stay on eviction, if you put a stay on evictions, what that communicates to your residents is, hey, you don't have to pay, which is not true. They're just not going to read the executive orders and the laws they pass. So you have to go to these residents who are trying to get something free anyways. And again, this is only the handful of bad ones, and explain to them like this, they didn't cancel your rent. They just they allowed you longer time to pay it. Right. That being said, that doesn't give you the excuse to go and bring some dude from out of the community and start shooting a gun off in the middle of the property. I had to evict someone for doing that. That's terrible. Oh, well, that guy doesn't live with us. Great. He is here with you. That's your responsibility. So I have to find a creative way to evict you because you don't respect me or your neighbors. That's a problem. So to me, that's kind of been the more angry thing, because that's made me angry, because the truth of the matter is I am absolutely going to work with every single one of my residents in a time like this. We have almost across the board not charged any late fees during COVID at all. And we've set up payment plans for folks. And the thing, it all comes down to respect. If you respect me, I'm going to respect you. I'm going to do what I can to keep you in a safe spot. It's just frustrating when the government comes in and tries to put something blanket across the way, but you kind of work your way through that. But by and large, we've come out of COVID in a better spot because for whatever bizarre reason, people are actually paying better than normally.
And for newcomers who want to get into this domain, right, mobile home parks, what is your suggestion? Can they start directly purchasing or look for one, or do you recommend do some single family home or small flip or something, get your feet wet and get into industry, or anything you can add, like, what exactly they have to do?
I want to be the champion of starting with nothing. No money, no experience, no network. You don't need anything to get started in this space. You really don't. Step one is always educate yourself, and don't just educate yourself so you can get started in this space. Educate yourself to make sure you even really want it.
What you wanted.
Because if you don't want it, you will quit. There is no sugarcoating it. You have to want mobile home parks, so much so that when a moment happens, you get sued, a home burns down, you lose a deal to someone else because of X, Y, or Z reason. Some bad things are going to happen. They're going to be devastating to hear psychologically. And if you just don't have that grit because you truly love it, because I don't think I'm necessarily that gritty of a person. I just think I have found what I am meant to do. I found what I love. And when you find what you love and what you're meant to do, then you just learn everything you can possibly learn. So listen to podcasts like mine. My podcast is Mobile Home Parks in Real Life. There's a ton of amazing podcasts out there. There are several amazing books out there, like Glenn Esterson's Mobile Home Park Manifesto. There are boot camps. We have a mentorship program. Like, there are ways you can go out and learn, either self-teach, pay someone to teach you, go network, go spend time in a mobile home park, go learn, because the more you know, the more value you'll be able to bring to the table. And the more value you can bring to the table, the more money you can get paid. So you always got to be value focused. What can I give to the market? And in return, I get paid for.
You hit the right points for sure. The mentor, having a mentor, reading books, networking, and focus on one stream, right? So that's so true. And with that, I have finished the basic questions. I have a few rapid questions, I would say.
Sure.
I want to know your view, what probably in one word, one sentence, whatever you feel like. Best habit you're proud of?
Duolingo Spanish. I've done it every day for like 3 years, and now I'm fluent in Spanish.
Beautiful. I tried probably Chinese, Mandarin, I guess. I couldn't, I guess, but yeah, we need to keep doing it. Best app or tool you use on a daily basis?
Oh, that is hard. Well, that's Duolingo, but we just used that. So I would say the Rent Manager app. It makes life so easy. We use Rent Manager in our properties.
Great. Best book, blog, and podcast you recommend?
I would say Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad, depending on which direction you want to go there. So that's definitely one of the two best books. Podcasts, got to say my own, but beyond mobile home parks in real life, I really enjoy Malcolm Gladwell's podcast, Dan Carlin's podcast, and then all of the mobile home park podcasts. What did you said? Podcast, book, and one other thing?
Maybe blog. If you blog or podcast, it's similar thing, I guess. Yeah.
A lot of great blogs out there as well. Andrew Keel's got great content. Ian Tudor, my business partner, does as well. Plenty of wonderful mobile home park specific content out there, blogs and podcasts.
Sure. The 4-hour work, like, for Tim Ferriss, I have it there. It's pretty good book.
It's amazing. Yeah.
First thing you do every day in the morning.
I pick up my son. He says, "Daddy," and my heart melts.
Oh God, that's a way to start. Sure. Name 3 most important things to you.
Family is number one. No questions asked. Don't even need to think about it. Friends, unless you consider that the same. My business, my happiness within my business, and just for fun, the Carolina Panthers.
Beautiful. What is success means to you?
Finding happiness. And that is very conjoined with finding meaning and purpose and making the world better because you were in it. So notice I didn't say the word money.
That's very true. Best quote you could think of right now.
My favorite quote of all time, Oscar Wilde. If you're going to tell someone the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they'll kill you. Have some humor because people can't always hear the truth. So sometimes the best way to tell someone the truth is to make them laugh.
Yeah, that's the way they connect too, I guess. Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you get inspired by every day?
I know it's going to sound cliche, but my son. I want my son to look at me one day and go, I want to be like my daddy. And I want to be the best person I can be. So I lead by example, not by do what I say, not what I do. I want my son to look at me and go, I'm going to do what my daddy does because it works. It's the right thing to do. It's making the world a better place. And I want to be that too.
That's the proudest moment, I guess, for sure. Yep. And one last thing, life is, fill it up.
Life is a never-ending search for meaning and purpose.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the time. You have changed wonderful things, really motivational. We get inspired, like my audience for sure. You have shared wonderful things on the mobile home parks. Thank you so much for your time again.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an honor.